Hello and welcome to the Mets in the UK podcast, bringing you all things Mets from a UK perspective. As always, coming at you on Spotify, YouTube, and all other good places you can get your podcasts. As a reminder, as you all know by now, you can find us on all of the socials at Mets in the UK, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter or X using the hashtag MITUK. As always, joined by my podcasting partner in crime, Toria. How are you doing this week, Toria?
I am good, thanks, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. So this is episode 15 of the Mets in the UK podcast, carrying on the musical theme from last week. This week, it's the Battle of Los Angeles. Shout out to the classic Rage Against the Machine album that it was. Talking about Los Angeles, because we're coming off game 2 of the NLCS, which was last night. So as always, we're going to start off by doing our quick recap of all things Mets from last week. Game 1 of the NLCS saw the Mets lose 9-0 to the Dodgers. Senga went 1 inning and a bit, giving up 3 runs in a short space of time before he was hooked. We then saw appearances from Garrett, Peterson, Young, and Butto in a game that can only be described as meh. Thoughts, Toria, game 1?
Yeah, I mean, meh just sums it up beautifully. I think it was... I think I said this to you before as well. It wasn't necessarily unexpected. I was a little bit nervous, and I mentioned the other day, in fact, about how nervous I was about having 3 days.
Yeah.
Because again, professional athletes, they know how to do all this stuff, but I think, we kind of needed that kind of vibe to continue and that wave. The guys were in the groove. I had a little bit of concern that we'd need to get going again. And we're facing the Dodgers. We're not, they are a very, very good side with a very, very good bullpen, even though we didn't even touch them for ages. But it wasn't the end of the world. I mean, you'd have thought, looking at socials, I'm not going to call out anyone in particular, that, the series was over after 1 game. It was very disappointing. It was a very frustrating loss in that it was a shutout. We got, 3 hits? We just didn't seem to get going. So should Senga have started? I mean, you can give your thoughts on that in a moment. That's open for debate. I was not comfortable at any point whilst he was on the mound. I wasn't surprised to see the train of relievers come in after him, and it was interesting, Garrett aside, those that were used, I thought that said a lot about how they felt about that game at that point. And I was very much of the opinion, just warm up, get acclimatized, see what you're facing. The Dodgers are a team that we don't face often. Obviously, we'd faced them not so long ago, but it's, let's just use this game, find the field, see where we're at, and come at them yesterday.
Yeah, and I think kind of what you're touching on there is I don't want to make excuses for the boys. They're grown men. They don't need excuses, but it's worth remembering that travel across America, to us in the UK, traveling across the UK is nothing. Traveling across America is far. Like, it's a long trip. I think that plays a toll on players, whether it's week 1 or whether it's, right at the back end of the season. I think it's inevitable that will have had an impact on the players, especially after the long season that they've had. You're right with Senga. I think if I'm completely honest, I think now is not the time to phase him back in. I think his return could have waited until spring training. Clearly, although he's saying that he's 100%, he wants to contribute. Fantastic. I love the energy. He wants to be a part of this. It's great. It's lovely seeing him wanting to be a part of this. But I just think if you're going to bring a player back, the NLCS is not really the time to throw them in at that deep end. If we've got Peterson coming out of the bullpen like he did in that game, why not use Senga in that role instead? You know, we know Peterson can go longer. Why not have him start the game, give him 3 or 4 innings, give Senga a couple of innings? And I feel like that's much more of a safer place to be than necessarily starting off the game with Senga, you know, where the confidence isn't there. And, you know, we have to remember this is a guy who has pitched 5 innings over the season through no fault of his own, but that's the situation we're in. And I think it's not necessarily been the smartest decision to rush him back. But, you know, you're right, 3 hits. It was a difficult watch. Obviously, you know, congratulations to the Mets. You know, first team in Major League Baseball history to lose a 7-game series in Game 1. So, you know, hats off to them. As far as we're concerned. Well done, boys. Job well done. All joking aside, you know, it wasn't the prettiest of starts. I think we can all admit that. Game 2, they'd settled in LA by all accounts. We saw the Mets we know and love. We saw a 7-3 victory against the Dodgers in Game 2. Lindor hitting a rather clutch home run. Vientos with a grand slam, which we'll get on to in a moment. Martin Taylor driving in some RBIs each. Sean Manaea started the game for the Mets, went 5 innings. We then saw appearances from Stanek, Maton, Diaz to keep us in the game, to keep everything sort of locked down for that 7-3 victory. What are your thoughts on Game 2?
So I'll start with the pitching, because I mentioned that for the first game and how interesting the decision was there. The combo of Maton and Stanek and Diaz, as and when needed, is clearly the preferred option. So so it was, you know, using the other relievers in Game 1 clearly showed that was, you know, they'd given that game, it's fine, you know, we'll move on. And they were already thinking about Game 2. What more can we say about Manaea? I mean, what a stud. I hoped he might have gone more than 5, but it was the right time. It was the right time for him to come out at that point. It was definitely the right time. But how he handled Ohtani was just beautiful. There was just no fear at all. He was straight at him. I mean, he was the same with all of them, which is what you need. But you know, he was attacking from the start. Put Ohtani completely off his game. Like he wasn't comfortable. He wasn't given that moment to get comfortable at all. And you could visibly see there were times where Ohtani was getting frustrated, and he was, you know, you could see in his face he was getting wound up with it all. Now,
love to see it.
Exactly. The guy is a unicorn. I respect him. I think he is wonderful. But when he's facing us, we want him stood up and sat down as quickly as possible. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sean Manaea, because he completely owned him. And it was beautiful to see. We know that the Dodgers are not a one-man team.
No.
By any means. So there was always that threat. But I think Francisco getting us off to that start, and not only the home run itself, but the whole at bat was just, he just battled and battled and battled and battled, and got his reward. And then Vientos, who walks to get to Vientos? And I am so glad. There were so many people saying, you know, he needs to take that personally, and boy did he. Again, another real battling at bat, didn't go chasing stuff, just got out there, and it was beautiful. It
really was. Yeah.
It really was. In fact, I think that was my immediate reaction, wasn't it? I was just like,
it was,
it was, because it just was. And I was very much, you know, there are our boys. They're back. They were hitting. They were getting on base. They were having those gutsy at bats. That was last night. Was our Mets. That's our Mets. And across the board. So all of the guys with the bat, all of the pitchers that came and went, they all did their job. They were all there. I mean, the thing that frustrated me in game one is not only did we not hit well, we made some errors as well. And that wasn't happening. I think we maybe had one last night. Was it Vientos had one?
Yeah, I can overlook it after the Grand Slam.
Indeed, but the point is there were far fewer.
Oh yeah, of course.
We just seemed on it again last night. We seemed like we'd regrouped, and that was the team and the approach and the effort and the application that we've come to know and love from this team. And when they're playing like that, it doesn't matter. You can throw Otani and Betts and Freeman and anyone else they would like to throw at us. Bring them, because it just doesn't matter. You hit, we'll hit more. Simple. You pitch well, we'll pitch better. I know, the argument will be, it was a bullpen game. It doesn't matter. You've still got to face the balls. They wouldn't be, they're professional baseball pitchers. They would not be put out there if they weren't expected to do a job. They didn't put them out there. The Dodgers didn't go out to lose yesterday. They went out to win.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning that the Dodgers bullpen is actually ridiculously strong.
Absolutely.
They are a team without Kershaw. They are a team. Who's the other pitcher I'm thinking of that they're without?
Otani.
Otani. But there was another one that was signed in the offseason who's also out. Name has eluded me. It was a big sort of acquisition signing for them anyway. But they are basically down to Yamamoto and a couple of others, and then they've been filling in with the bullpen. But because their bullpen is so strong, fair play to them for it. They're able to get away with it in these kind of games. I must add before we finish talking about game two, if you didn't see the absolute gem from Bob Nightingale on Twitter, shout out to Mets catcher Wilson Alvarez for his at bats in the game. What on earth Bob Nightingale was thinking when he referred to him as Wilson Alvarez, I do not know. But it's nice to see that even professionals can make a mistake and do get it wrong from time to time. Added a bit of much needed amusement to the game, definitely. Whilst we're talking about all things on social media, there's a lovely picture doing the rounds earlier today of Mark Vientos as a child in Mets gear. Did you see that one, Toria? Yeah, it's the cutest thing, and it's obvious, as if playing for a World Series isn't enough. Clearly, Mark is a Mets fan at heart, wearing the gear as young child, as you see in the picture. It's things like that make the game so special, and just shows what it does mean to the players, at the end of the day. Whilst we're also talking about news and things that are going on, obviously the NLCS is underway. That did mean a change to the roster. We saw the return of the Flying Squirrel himself, Jeff McNeil. He is back in the squad. Adam Ottavino was dropped, a move that I think most Mets fans, certainly in our group chat, we saw coming. Once it was announced that the Mets could have dropped a pitcher for an outfielder, we all sort of looked at the list and thought, it's got to be Adam, hasn't it, unfortunately for him. Jeff has played a couple of games in the Arizona Fall League to try and sort of be match ready, if you like. An interesting one, we've touched on it in the past. Obviously, Iglesias has played so well for the Mets. Had a slight, I say slight, he's still got ridiculous numbers, but a slight different form over the last couple of games. Linked to this, we've also had the news that Brandon Nimmo has been dealing with plantar fasciitis. I think I've said that right. Basically, it's a foot injury since May. He's been managing that pain throughout the entire season. He says that he's going to continue to manage that until the off season, where it looks like injections and other ouchy things are going to be heading his way. Nimmo with this issue has not looked particularly quick on his feet, understandably, in the outfield over the last few games. With McNeil back in the squad, Iglesias is different form. I think it's likely that we're going to see Jeff making some appearances over the next few games. And then finally, the other piece of Mets news is we had the Golden Glove announcements from Rawlings. I can be already shaking your head before I even said it. Francisco Lindor, to the surprise of anyone with a pair of eyes, has been snubbed for the Golden Glove at shortstop. It sounds ridiculous even saying it. I can't believe I'm saying it.
It's crazy.
Severino was the only Met nominated for the Golden Glove award. He is in the top 3 for pitching in the National League. Lots of things happening in the news at a quiet end of the season. Any thoughts, any takes, Toria?
Yeah, I mean, we have to start with Lindor, right? I mean, yeah. What's the guy got to do? What is he? I mean, even people outside of the Mets, it's not just a Mets bias thing. No. Even people outside of the Mets are kind of like, I don't know, like why? I do not understand. My initial argument was, it's because he plays for the Mets. But then, of course, Sevy got nominated. However, we could have had 3 pitchers. We could have, all 3 of our big boys could have made that list, right? So I think it would have been even more questionable had at least one of them not made it. But I'm sure Lindor will say he doesn't care. It doesn't mean anything. He just wants the World Series, blah, blah. And I'm sure getting a World Series championship ring will make that ache a little less painful.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, even if it doesn't mean as much, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it can't not mean something to want to be recognized amongst your peers. Like, come on. But even for us fans, like, we want that, but we know that our boys are great. So we want that validation for us and for them. So I don't understand it. I think Mason will probably get it. You can make an argument for all 3 of the finalists. You just can't make an argument for Lindor not being on it. I can't see it. I can't see it. So that is very frustrating, and it feels like it's personal in some way. Sorry, not sorry for saying that, but I don't know what it is. But
no, I think you're right. It's hard to not take it personally.
Yeah.
After the season that he's had. Yeah.
Exactly. Anyway, regards the McNeil news, I think personally I'd have preferred to keep an arm in the bullpen, because I just think that we're playing, we have been playing 5 and 7 game series, and we've got, a 7-game series and hopefully another 7-game series. So you kind of need those arms. However, that was before we knew about Nimmo's injury. And I think having that bit more flexibility with being able to bring McNeil off the bench. Obviously, we could bring Acuna off the bench and move things, but I think, McNeil can play outfield as well. I've had plantar. I'm not going to mention the fact that it took me like 9 months to get through it. Oops, I did. It varies, but it is. Yeah. It's manageable. It is manageable, but you don't want to have to be. It can be very, very uncomfortable. It's more the landing than the leaping itself. So any kind of some movement and being on uneven. Anyway, it's not ideal for him.
No, it's not.
I'm pleased that we know, and I'm pleased that he's managing it, and I'm pleased that they've got contingencies there. That's clearly why we have McNeil there. And I'm glad that it's not, benching him. If he needs the extra day here and there, so be it. But, I'm not, I would prefer an arm. I understand why we don't. And I'm happy to have Jeff back around the team. I think just he's one of the old guard, right? So I think just having him around and about is a good thing. And on that
I
side,
think,
more so.
sorry.
Yeah,
I think with Jeff, it's more, he offers a different kind of approach at the plate. He has a different style of hitting that,
and he's
if you are down on an account, or you're struggling in a close game, having him slap it into the opposite side of the field, just getting some people on base, maybe driving in a run or two.
Yeah, exactly.
Which we've seen from Jeff many times before. It just gives you a little something else, more than, like you're saying, the flexibility of playing infield and outfield positions as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think he can. He gives options more so than a pitcher might. But I'm glad he's around. Perhaps I'd prefer it if we didn't have to make a choice and we could have kept an arm, albeit Ottavino, and we all know my feelings about Ottavino. If we could have done both, great. But I wouldn't have sent Acuna down for him either. So, there's no right answer.
Yeah, this is definitely valuable for Acuna's development as well. He's learning a lot, and if he is the future of the infields, like many believe him to be, having him around this kind of run's only going to help him more in the future, definitely. Whilst we are talking about the future, up next for the Mets, they are back in New York for the next few games of the NLCS. We saw the news that Severino flew home a day early in full civvy clothing with 59 on his face, which was quite a sight to see, in support of Sean Manaea ahead of his appearance, which just further cements the good feeling and vibes around this team. He was sent home a day early so he could be rested, ready to go. The next game, this is now where it's going to start getting a little bit weird. So I'm going to talk about days and then UK start times, because we are well and truly off the piste here. So technically, the next game is Wednesday, which we're recording this Tuesday, so that's tomorrow. Technically, the next game is Wednesday, but because of the time difference, that starts at 1:08 a.m. Thursday morning. I don't know why you're covering your face, because we all know you're going to be watching. At the moment, MLB.com has the probable pitchers as Severino versus Buehler for the Dodgers. Game 4 is Thursday, which is 1:08 a.m. our time, Friday morning. Again, we know you're going to be watching. Don't shake your head. The probable pitcher for the Dodgers in that game is Yamamoto. Mets is still TBC. They're still keeping their cards close to their chest on that one. I think it's going to be a case of see what happens in game 3. Game 5, which we know is going to happen in New York, is Friday. I'm going to call it UK friendly-ish, because
it is
10 p.m. start. It's about as friendly as we're going to get in this end of the season. If we do need a game 6 or a game 7, those take place in LA. Game 6 is on Sunday, which is 1:08 a.m. Monday morning our time. Game 7 is on Monday, which is 1:08 a.m. Tuesday our time. Thoughts? Where are we going to go? Are you still Mets in what? Where are we going with this?
My heart would love to say Mets in 5, just because there's two aspects to that anyway, which one goes against me saying Mets in 5, because then that would sound ridiculous. It's almost like if you take the burnt pitchers out of the equation, we're starting a 5-game series, and we have home advantage for the first 3 games.
Yeah,
which is crazy. So if you're putting yourself in that position, it's not unreasonable to expect that you could win that 5-game series. So, however, it's not a 5-game series; it's a 7-game series, and we only have to win 3. So, I would love for us to do it in front of the Citi Field crowd.
Yes, of course.
I think that I've been there a few times this year, but I am mostly at this point thinking of those people like me that were at that home opening series in the freezing cold, being miserable. I mean, I'm never miserable when I'm at City because I'm there, but
No, cool.
you get the vibe, right? For those people, for all of us, but especially for those people, I would love for us to wrap it up at home on Friday night. Again, there's an argument about the break afterwards if we were to do that. So do I want us to have that break or not? I think because wrapping it up at home on Friday is worth it. Do I think we're really going to do that? Probably not. I can't see them losing 3 games in a row against us. But I would love for that to happen.
Yeah.
Realistically, I think 6. I think we're going to have to go
Yeah. I think I'm in agreement with you there. I think my heart is saying, yeah, City Field, New York faithful. It'll be amazing. It'll be electric. It'll be brilliant. My head's saying there's no way the Dodgers as good as they are. There's no way. In reality, we know they're not going to win all 3 games and sweep that series. It's possible, but the odds are very much not in their favour of that happening. I think Mets in 6 is a realistic shout. Just to the kind of ups and downs we've had.
Yeah,
they like making it a drama.
Of course,
it wouldn't even surprise me if it went to a game 7. Obviously, we don't want to see that. I think for our own health. But it just wouldn't surprise me with these Mets and seeing them then pull it out of the bag in game 7. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
And if it takes 7, it takes 7. But I genuinely believe that we will win the series. I think these are the hardest opponent we've faced so far.
Yeah.
We are on as even after 2. I don't think we've seen anything especially scary. Yes, they put 9 past us the other night, but if you look at how those 9 were scored, it was clusters and errors. So it's if you watch the game, it's not as heavy as 9 sounds. It's not like when we've been hitting and hitting and hitting and hitting and scored 9 in the past. It was clusters and errors. So I think they are learnable, teachable moments.
Yeah, I think it's also easier as a player to dust off a 9-0 than it is. Had they gone there and lost that first game 4-3, it had been really close.
Yeah,
they'd made a defensive error and that had cost them the game. That's hard to shake off. Whereas with 9-0, you kind of go, oh, never mind, we'll go again. It's an easier defeat to take, although the scoreline suggests otherwise. Whilst we are talking about scorelines, just to keep people in the loop, our noisy neighbours in their series against the Guardians. Yankees won their game 5-2. They are 1-0 up in the series. The ALCS is like a day staggered behind ours. So there's game 7 of theirs is due to finish Wednesday of next week. If it needs to go to that game 7. Obviously, there's a lot of Mets baseball coming up over the next few days. We will be back Tuesday next week, even if there is a game 7. We will be back Tuesday next week to fully recap everything that's gone on over the last week, as we always are. As is often the case, I'm going to shout out our regular listeners, subscribers, followers, and commenters. Thank you so much for engaging with our podcast.
We do appreciate
it. Yeah, we do. We do notice. We do appreciate it. If you are listening for the first time, or if you've not yet done so, please do consider giving us a subscribe, a like, a follow, a repost, any of that good stuff, helping us grow this content, getting it out there to more people. It is greatly appreciated and never taken for granted. So just to finish up, we are hitting the half-an-hour mark. Toria, any last takes before we wrap up the pod?
No, we've got this. That's all.
You gotta believe.
Always, always.
As always, let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.